President Biden is touting the infrastructure law in Detroit, Michigan today. He is visiting a General Motors electric vehicle assembly plant. The president will stress in a speech later today that the infrastructure law creates a future of made in America and gives our country the tools to fight climate change. It's one of many stops the president's administration will make to sell the $1.2 trillion infrastructure law. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Hi, Nancy. So what can we expect to see from the president in Detroit today?
Well, Tanya, he is going to tout all the features of this infrastructure bill that have to do with electric vehicles. The fact that consumers can now get a pretty hefty tax write-off if they buy American-made electric vehicles. There's also billions of dollars in this bill, $7.5 billion to be exact, to expand the network of electric vehicle charging stations in this country. And that is particularly important because right now, electric vehicles only make up a little under 2% of the entire automobile market. And that isn't going to expand very rapidly if consumers don't feel that they have lots of charging stations where they can stop to fill up that aren't either at their home or at their place of business. And we know that it's pretty cost prohibitive right now for gas stations, for example, to install EV charging stations. And so what this $7.5 billion will do is really significantly ramp up the number of charging stations across the country, potentially making it more feasible, more attractive for people to invest in electric vehicles, which has been touted by so many environmentalists as the key to a better climate and a better environmental future for the United States.
Yeah, I was talking to an Uber driver the other day who's been driving a Tesla for a while. He loves it. So let's see if it catches on. All right. So, Nancy, the Biden administration is also, of course, still working to pass that larger social and climate spending bill. What is the reaction from the White House on this legislation?
Well, they're really in a holding pattern right now because they're waiting for the Congressional Budget Office any day now to come back with its analysis of the bill. You know, the White House has painted a really rosy picture of how much the bill would cost, how much it would bring in revenue. And, until we see the numbers from the independent, nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, there are a handful of centrist Democrats who are going to be reluctant to cast a vote. We believe that those CBO numbers will come in by the end of the week. And if that happens, then the House will be able to vote on the bill as long as the CBO numbers roughly show what the White House says they should show. Then they should be able to vote by the end of the week, perhaps Friday, maybe even Saturday. But crucially, before they head home for the Thanksgiving break and lose all the momentum that has been created. So the White House has its fingers crossed. The president is talking about this bill every day on the stump. He was in New Hampshire yesterday. I'm sure he's going to be talking about it again in Michigan today. It would be a really a significant step forward for his agenda if the House were to be able to pass it, and then all eyes would turn to the Senate, where there are still 2 Democratic senators that need to be won over once and for all.
And Nancy, finally, Catholic bishops have voted on whether or not those who support abortion rights should receive communion. It's an issue that, of course, was brought to light because of President Biden. So now Catholics in a position of public authority are saying to have a special responsibility to form their views on the church's moral law. What does this mean exactly, and what does it mean for President Biden?
So this was an overwhelming vote by U.S. Catholic bishops. It did not mention President Biden, this statement, by name, but what it did say is that Americans in special positions of public influence, say the President of the United States, that those Catholic Americans have a responsibility to craft their conscience in accordance with Catholic doctrine. And what all that means when you boil it down is that those high-influence individuals should believe that abortion is wrong and should be anti-abortion. And this president, as we know, has been on the record for a long time as saying that he personally is against abortion, but he doesn't believe that he should impose those beliefs on other Americans who don't share his Catholic faith. And that is something that has riled up bishops, particularly conservative bishops, who have been pushing this for quite a while, despite the fact that the Pope himself has really signaled that he's not interested in fighting this fight. And if you believe President Biden, when the two men met a couple of weeks ago, the Pope even told him that he believes that President Biden should continue to take communion. What all this boils down to is, Tanya, that this is a public rebuke of sorts, but it doesn't affect President Biden's ability to take communion. If he goes to his church in Wilmington this weekend or to the churches he favors here in Washington, he will still be able to get communion as he did before, as long as the priest is okay with it, which so far, up until now, they have been.
An interesting reception for President Biden from the American Catholic Church, being only the second Catholic president we've had. He has not been embraced with open arms across the board there.
Right. And it really is a tricky situation for him, and kind of a no-win situation, which is why often when we ask him about it, he will simply deflect and say that this is a personal matter, and he doesn't think it's going to be, it's going to affect his ability to take communion. So, you know, a president who can be fairly loquacious when he wants to be, but not very chatty about this particular topic.
Interesting. All right. Well, Nancy Cortez at the White House, thank you so much.
You're welcome.